I'll be honest, I need to go back and look at that one.
7. I just didn't understand, I
let's
wasn't
see
sure
here,
if it was a new hire or,
Good question.
Do we have anybody out? The middle school? Middle school? Okay. I know we had the issue of Pearlie where we have a double salary that we're covering.
It's not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm not that I'm aware of. Honestly, can't answer the question.
okay.
I just
I will
have,
look into it.
Okay, that's all right. Well, that one question is 4101, 51104. It's on the second page.
777,
Middle school.
34.
He's teaching. There's a couple of those, I just wondered.
There's a few of them, yeah.
well, you can get back to the
Yeah.
committee on that.
Can you get back to us on that?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I don't wanna pull them out.
Number them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not,
Are we starting what number?
We're not,
there's no numbers on these, so I don't know what number to even start with.
Ah,
We don't have any.
I don't have them. Let's see, maybe I do.
you want to just work on that?
And-
Yeah,
move on?
we'll just move on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Unless somebody has places to go. All right, well, Terry, you don't have any other finance, do you, right now? All
Can
right,
we get, just for either the next meeting or,
I know what you're gonna ask me.
yeah, probably the next meeting, the munis report, so we can just go through the accounts to see,
Monthly news report.
yeah, just year to
Mhm.
date. I'm imagining I'll have year to date through February, maybe
I was
through
gonna
March
say
for the
the-
next meeting.
At the next meeting, you would probably get your third quarter report, I believe.
Right, and if we could just
Yeah.
get the munis
With
Yeah,
that,
thing, so
report-
that I can go through, I just like to look through all
When
the,
no, with the report I give you, that is the munis report with added columns.
okay, but okay, as long as it has
Yeah,
the
it'll have all that
the
information. It'll have all
gazillion
that
pages
detail.
of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so I can see
It'll
where we
have
are
every
here.
piece of detail.
Great, thank you.
moving on to subcommittee reports, budget and finance, Ann?
Nothing at this point, I guess we'll get into it in a few minutes.
Governance? Nope, same thing. Negotiating?
We have a meeting when?
We had a meeting,
We have a,
we had a meeting a week ago,
and then we have another one on.
and we have another one April
April
5th.
5th, with the custodial.
Yeah, food service workers are done, we're waiting for Joe to get back to us with our
Right.
agreement. And we're in the process of talking about custodians right now.
Right,
Okay, and you guys
April.
saw the letters that I sent out, so hopefully that will go back, so
yeah.
if there's anything that needs to be done with that, we'll know within another week. Okay. All right, anything else? No more PR? No, we haven't had an update on that?
Nope.
Okay, all right, let's move on to old business, the FY12 budget. Okay. Before we start, I want to thank the approximately close to 30 people who emailed me over the last 24 hours. If I haven't gotten back to you, I will. I promise, I'll get back to everyone. I copied them all, and I appreciate everybody who took the time to, look up our email addresses and send them in. And, thank you. All right, now, we went to FinCom last week, and as you probably all know, they told us, we appreciate that you want 642 over net school spending, but we don't have it. So we're back down to net school spending, which is the 872,089 in cuts from where we are right now. I went to a FinCom budget workshop, is that what they called it, Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And there was discussion about an override. That's what we're gonna talk about tonight. I've met with Carol many times. We're looking at really 3 options is what we have talked about to this point. The 642, which would not give us everything that we have right now, but it would keep us fairly stable for next year. But we'll be in the exact same position next year when this comes around. We're looking at 1 to 1.5 million somewhere in that, which would bring back a lot of the things that have been cut, as well as possibly update a little bit with maintenance and a little technology and a few other things
That
that
we'll
Carol's
go over.
listed, she'll go over. And then, you know, obviously then there's another option of a big override. And when I say big, I mean 2+. So that's something that we're all gonna talk about tonight and hopefully come up with a number that we can live with. Because when we do this at town meeting, it's not a specific number. It's raise and appropriate up to, is that correct, Steve? A certain amount. So we can plan to do it up to a certain amount. It can be modified, you know, reduced, whatever. But I think going into that point, we would like to have a solid number so we can actually show everyone where each dollar is gonna go. And that's what's important to me anyway, so that people understand we're not asking for X amount of money for what we think. It's for this and this and this. So, that being said, Carol, why don't you have the list?
Okay, so, you know, we've been going to all these budget forums and talking to people, collecting information, and we've sort of received sort of 3 general kind of comments. One is, how can you, if you're gonna go for an override, you know, something less than $1 million, maybe something around level services, something maybe slightly higher than 642. But basically, avoid those cuts, particularly those cuts to the middle high school, because people are very concerned about that. The second group that we hear from are the people that say, well, you want to at least maintain what you have, put back in what you were going to cut, and think about how you're going to be able to do some additional things that you really need to make up some of the ground that maybe has been sort of stalled for the last several years. And then the third group was, well, just tell us what the number is to fix the problems. So, I don't think any of us, when we go over this, think that the prudent thing to do is to go after the third level override, which is, you know, getting us everything we need. But I think it's important to respond to what the community is asking in terms of, well, what would it look like? What would you need if you were going to do that? Rather than pull a number out of the air,
Right.
quantify it. So that's what we've attempted to do here, taking all the feedback that we've gotten from people and based on our strategic thinking and where we want to go. What you have today is just a quick little summary, which I'll go over, but I also copied for you the information that the principals submitted when I asked them the question, you know, if we were to go after an override, what do you feel is necessary in your building? And I think you'll be interested to see that we didn't get any pie in the sky ideas. People, you know, we know what educational excellence, you know, is, and we're doing a great job with what we have, as we've heard from the community many times. But there are things that we need that would be important if we have an opportunity to go for an override, and we know this is the worst economic time to do it.
And some of it was stuff that they've just lost in the last couple of years.
Some of it is things
Yes.
they've lost, and basically, as Ann said, the problem becomes, you know, as we've looked 3 years out, we've all seen the spreadsheets, we've shared them with the town government, and we predicted $1.5 million was where we were gonna be in 12, and that was gonna be the gap, and 13 wasn't necessarily scheduled to be much better. So the concern here is, you know, how do we maybe do something that gets us, you know, a little bit toward where we need to be, realizing that next year is also going to be difficult, and if we don't get any extra money, we're going to still be in the hole, and what are we going to cut next year? If this is the cut list this year, what are we going to cut next year?
Right,
So-
and that's
With a new building.
the fundamental issue here, is that we're gonna have this issue every single year until we fix the structural problem we've had in the budget and we've known about for 3 years.
3 years we've been talking.
And the fact that the town hasn't had the long-term planning probably needed to solve some of these issues in the town, you know, really shouldn't be the burden of our kids, or for that matter, our teachers, you know, quite frankly. So, you know, we could do the 642 or whatever it is, but we'll be right back here next year making cuts again, or talking about an override. And I don't think that's going to be realistic, that we're going to have an override year upon year upon year. Probably it's the right thing, and this due to the situation of our town, the tax rates, the growth in our town, you know, and 2.5 override being the law. But you know, that's why I think there's all these A, B, and C school of thoughts.
Right.
Do you just put the Band-Aid on it this year? Or do we try to fix some of the things that are really fundamental things, like maintenance of our schools, study halls in our high schools. I mean, some of the things that we've all been cringing over as we're talking about them, and just aren't right.
But I think the other thing that we have to be cognizant, because there's also a group within all these groups that thinks that we're adding and adding and adding.
Sure.
Right.
And in fact, we are perhaps adding things that we've been losing over the last few years that
Right.
have put us in a precarious situation, especially when it comes to the high school accreditation. And I only point that out because it's the only thing that we can really point to that's really being impacted right now in a negative way from an outside source. I mean,
Right.
certainly there are other things that are being impacted.
So the question that gets asked over and over, if you're going to do an override,
Which, no.
and it needs to be what you need,
Mhm.
not pie in the sky.
Right.
And it needs to be tied in some way to some goal, some real reason to ask for every single item on an override. So what we attempted to do in this short memo that we talked about is, people have a high degree of concern about how are we gonna mitigate accreditation. Okay?
They should.
We've said in all of the forums that we've been in that, and I want to reassure the students of this, because I understand that there's a lot of high school students who are very anxious about this. We are not going to lose our accreditation if we make those cuts. That is not how it works. We are an accreditation warning because we have not addressed the issues in that standard 7, which is community resources for learning. There are issues with the building and size, ability to provide certain programs, and there is a question about a steady and dependable funding source. Meaning long-range planning, dealing with if you look at, actually it's interesting, if you look at Peter's memo on the top of the sheet here, the top of this little packet I gave you, what Peter did is he took every bullet in that standard where we have to do something, and he basically talked about, what's essential to deal with that. So for example, if you go down to like the third bullet, limited access to computers for instructional purposes due to outdated technology in the computer labs. The solution to that would be replace the CAD lab and the graphic design lab. That's a direct solution to that action step, or to that issue that was raised. Some of these things can't be addressed, like for example, using the stage as a teaching station, if there's not some type of a building project and we're able to free up classrooms by moving 6th grade out so that classrooms can be utilized to remedy that, unless we want to get portable classrooms. Okay? So this just kind of breaks down what are the issues that we need to have. So we're not going to lose our accreditation. Okay? We might risk being downgraded to probation, but I can't tell you that for sure because the commission makes that decision. They are not happy with the rising fees. They feel that that's an equity issue, and they do feel that co-curricular activities are an essential part of a child's curriculum and education. And by creating fees of $600 without any family cap creates
Right.
an inequity. And it
And
is
that's just got to be pointed out too, that our budget of 642
Does not
basically
address that.
eliminates
Does not address
sports
that.
and clubs because the fees are going to go through
That's
the
right,
roof.
And buses.
that's right.
So, and the
bus
bus
rides.
situation, so.
And we were told by Janet Allison, who is the director of NEASC, that we will not be removed from warning until there is a solution to the building project. Either if a building we don't have a renovation addition or a new building, then we will have to do something else, or we will risk being downgraded. We may have to put portable classrooms, whatever the solution will be. But we will not be removed from accreditation warning until there's a solution to the building. Okay? What we're trying to do in looking at all of this is how do we mitigate and keep the accreditation at least at the level that it is.
And the only reason it became an issue is because they did, in their latest letter to us, fire that shot across that if we are not making progress, that could
We will be
result in a downgrade. But we've recently approved the feasibility study.
That's right.
which kind
We
of
were very
levels
happy
it.
with that.
They were thrilled with that, but if we have to file substantive change reports, that could
That's right.
muddy the waters.
So
Right.
raising our fees, raising our class sizes would definitely put
Right.
us in the spotlight to possibly.
Yeah,
be
Mrs.
downgraded.
Allison is going to come to Georgetown. In fact, I was going back and forth today with her around dates. She would like to, the FinCom and Board of Selectmen, and we've talked about doing some kind of a joint meeting where she can come out, she can answer Q&A. And, you know, we can finally, you know, get some answers. You know, it's one thing for me to answer it, it's one thing for us to contact her and her to give an answer, but it's very different to have her talk about it and to have her speak about how accreditation works, what's the value of it, how does it work in other school districts. So anyway, accreditation mitigation is one factor that in anything that goes on the override list, we would